It's a pleasure to have on the program a man who I really have enjoyed getting to know, a man who's truly decent, very conservative, solid. Senator Tim Scott. Senator Scott, I seem to recall you tried to do something early on about these college campuses, didn't you?
Mark, you're 100% right. I cannot believe the disgusting, despicable, anti-American behavior on our college campuses. And 5 years ago, Mark, 5 years ago, I started working on legislation leading to create an environment where our Jewish community would be safe and welcomed on college campuses. And instead of that, Mark, instead of people supporting the anti-Semitism legislation that I created in 2016, that the former president, President Trump, signed into an executive order inviting me to the White House to be a part of the celebration, instead of us seeing the exact opposite, we're seeing the exact opposite, Mark, on today's campuses, where we're having people hating America, hating the Jewish population, supporting terrorism, encouraging genocide, Mark. It boils my blood. This administration is speaking with a forked tongue, Mark. You cannot believe the words coming out of their mouths. I am so frustrated with what I'm seeing on college campuses. And, Mark, we should not wait for the Jewish community to stand up. All loving Americans, all proud to be Americans should be standing in the gap for our Jewish community. And I dare anyone to stand up and say we're wrong, because I got to tell you the truth, Mark. We are 100% right. We should bring the heat against every single anti-Semite in the country and let them know where we stand. We stand on the side of right. We stand with our Jewish citizens. We stand with Israel, because we know Psalms 122:6 says, pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and those who do will prosper.
So profound. So, Senator, let me ask you this. If you were president of the United States, would you be looking at the student visas? Would you be looking at the whole immigration issue? Would you be looking at the funding of particularly rabid college campuses where people aren't even safe anymore?
Well, Mark, I think you and I are kindred spirits on this topic, because here's what I've already done. I'm already leading on legislation to pull the Pell Grant funding from colleges and universities that allow for people to promote, encourage hate, but not just hate, because the First Amendment allows you to be wrong. You should not be able on a college campus to encourage Jewish genocide. You should not be able to support mass murder, and you certainly should not encourage terrorism and have your funding in place if these college campuses and their administrations will not call to the carpet these kids. We should pull our taxpayer funding from those universities, number one. Number two, any kid, any student on our college campuses who are here on a visa, who are encouraging the slaughter of the Jewish people, any college student on a visa who is encouraging mass murder, any college student on our campuses on a visa who are supporting genocide, they should be deported. They should be pulled out of class, pulled off the campus, and kicked out of our country. That's the kind of leadership I would have as President of the United States. I'm telling you, Mark, those are the first two steps. But then we have to turn to an incredibly important issue, the southern border. Mark, over the last several months, we've seen thousands of illegal immigrants cross our border from Iran, from Syria, from Iraq, and from Yemen combined. I'm concerned that our country has sleeper cells in our midst. And that's not being hyperbolic. I mean it sincerely. We need a president who is willing to close our southern border, not sell off the construction material. We need a president who's willing to use the military-grade technology to surveil our southern border and, frankly, the tunnels beneath, not a president who wants to keep the border insecure, unsafe, and wide open. That's why your listeners can go to votetimscott.com, contribute $1, contribute $5, so that this voice remains on the stage fighting for common sense, decency, and the preservation of our relationship with the great nation, Israel.
Folks, Tim Scott needs to be on that stage. Some of them don't. Chris Christie comes to mind all the time. But Tim Scott should be on that stage. So you need what? You have plenty of money and support, but is it the polls or you need small donations? What is it that you need, Senator?
Mark, the good news is we've qualified by the polls. You're right, we do have enough money, but we need a few more donors. So the individual donors, it's interesting. We started this campaign in March. They only started counting our donors April the 12th, which we raised 10,000 donors in the first 4 weeks, and they're not counting those folks. We need another few thousand donors in order for us to remain on the debate stage. We are the most pro-Israel, pro-common sense, loving America because I've lived the American dream. We're going to fight tooth and nail to make sure that this nation is a city on the hill. I'll do it from the bench. I'll do it from the field. I'll do it from the stands. I'll do it from the airwaves. We have to make sure that the next generation of Americans inherits the country, Mark, that you and I inherited. This is not about politics. This is a mission to make sure America always stands on the side of right.
VoteTimScott.com. Look, you may support another candidate. That's fine. The point is he should be on that stage. VoteTimScott.com, VoteTimScott.com. When is this debate? I don't even remember when this debate is.
November the 8th, Mark. Wednesday, November the 8th. We are 10 or so days away from it, and I will tell you, one of the most consequential conversations we should be having is not simply debating each other about the differences. We should be debating the future of this nation. We should be debating the fact that this nation must make a stand and make the stand clear, make it consistent, and make it concise. We're always with our Jewish brothers and sisters, wherever they are in the entire world.
Senator Tim Scott is our guest. His site is votetimscott.com. You ought to check it out, votetimscott.com. Senator Scott, what is this love affair between Biden and his administration and the regime in Iran that they seem to have rearmed and that is behind all this terrorist activity? What is that all about?
Mark, it is un-American to see what's happening in this administration. I can't think of anything more bizarre than to watch the first steps, the baby steps of this administration, Mark. It started before October the 7th, when they were going to have the Russians negotiate with the Iranians on our behalf for a new JCPOA or a new nuclear deal. And then after October the 7th, the first reaction, the weakness of Joe Biden attracts atrocities, conflict, and chaos. Then the negotiations, the $6 billion, Mark, help to fund Hamas. I know they say they froze the dollars, but money's fungible. But what they miss to talk about is the $80 billion of energy resources when Biden allowed them to start selling their oil again. That makes them complicit. But let's go one step further on this Iranian relationship. How is it that on American soil, the Iranian's foreign minister said if we allow for the genocide in Gaza to continue, America will pay a price? How dare this administration allow the foreign minister of Iran to threaten Americans and America on our soil? How is it that Hamas says thank you to Iran, and we sound like church mice. We deserve better in the President of the United States, and I can't think of the first thing they should do is call in the squad and kick them out the party. They are so transfixed by power. They are so addicted to political power that they're willing to use anybody, any issue, any group to hold on to their political power, and it is disgusting, Mark. We're talking about 2023, the worst attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust, and this administration stands with Bibi in the daylight and negotiates to stall the entry into Gaza at night.
That is a great way to put it. And you're exactly right. They do one thing in front of the camera and another thing behind the scenes, and it's really duplicitous. And they're lying to us, we the people. Now, Senator, again, it's votetimscott.com, votetimscott.com. Again, we want him on the stage. I want Tim Scott on the stage. Whoever you support, maybe you support Tim Scott, that's great. But he's met all the requirements except he needs more small donations. I don't really understand these RNC rules, to be perfectly honest with you, but
I don't.
That's what we're stuck with.
I don't either, Mark, but I tell you what, getting on that stage and having the conversation with the American people about the topics that you and I care about. Listen, you and I may disagree on economic policy. I don't think we do. You and I may disagree on some of the foreign policy. I don't think we do. But here's what we know we agree on, that this is the greatest nation on God's green earth, and that comes with the responsibility to standing in the gap for our allies. That is a responsibility that we have always lived up to. We've always been loyal to our allies and lethal to our adversaries. But President Biden takes a leap back instead of leaning into the fight.
I think he's Obama light. He's got all these Obama radicals around him, whether it's Blinken or Sullivan and all the rest of them. And they have a very perverse ideology about our country and foreign policy. And look where it's gotten us. I mean, we now have Americans, 31 who were killed. Nobody ever talks about it. They were killed. They were slaughtered on October 7th. We have American hostages. We now have American military personnel, some of them with apparently some very serious head wounds. Yes. And he doesn't do anything.
Well, Mark, you raised a really good point, and this is where I think the country needs to put the dots together. Under Obama, we saw the red line in Syria. And what was the response, Mark? Nothing. We saw the incursion in Ukraine. What was the response? Nothing. Then he created the nuclear deal, the JCPOA, and within months, the Iranians were test firing ballistic missiles in violation of the actual agreement that I thought was terrible anyways. But what did they do? Nothing. And so you take that administration and you put it on steroids, bring the same people back into Joe Biden's administration, and they do it again. But instead of paying $400 million for hostages like they did in the Obama administration, they supersized the payment to $6 billion. The result, they created a market for American lives abroad, a massive market. It endangers every single American abroad, and that's not being hyperbolic. That's just the facts. We need to tie these strings together so the American people can see clearly that the radical left, led by too many folks who feel like, look like, walk like anti-Semites, I'm talking about the squad, we have a responsibility to expose the radical left, and their theology is power.
Mm-hmm. You're exactly right, Senator. Well, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your clarity, your morality, your understanding of what's taking place here. It's votetimscott.com. A small contribution from thousands of you will enable him to get on that stage with their weird rules and debate. Again, Many in this audience support President Trump or Ron DeSantis. Many support you, Senator. But
Yes,
we want
sir.
to have the senator on the stage because I think he is a very, very important voice. And I want to wish you all the best. Be safe, my friend. Be safe.
Thank you, Mark. God bless you. And let's make sure that we all stand with Israel. No matter where we disagree, let's never turn our back on the only democracy. 9 million people surrounded by 400 million. Let's stand in the gap.
God bless you, sir. Take care of yourself. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
He's a good man. Very good man.